Any of the companies you had on earnings there, Maddie? Hilton, I know there's a couple of names out there. I don't know if any of them grabbed your attention or not.
Hilton, let's go to HLT very quickly. In Hilton, I wanted to bring up for a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously, it's a major player in this industry. But two, that weekly chart, I think, is setting up for some potential run on a breakout. I want to get Tyler's technical take here on Hilton. The raw numbers were not good on Hilton, but we know that. That's par for the course when it comes to hotels, airlines, cruise lines, theaters, anything that was very heavily hit due to the pandemic. Food, leisure companies, you know the drill. Everybody knows the drill at this point. So the raw numbers were bad. They came in at a negative 10 cents versus the expectation, showing a positive 4 cents. Revenue came in underneath the expectation at 890 million versus the 1.16 billion expectation. Revenue did decrease 62.4% year over year. Again, in any normal world, these numbers get sold, and they get sold very aggressively. In the context of 2020 and the pandemic, and specifically to this industry, these are not as bad as they could have been. Now that we're behind earnings here, I am seeing a potential break here, about that 115 level. Tyler, can you give us a technical read from a daily to a weekly chart here?
It's pretty. Do you know, when you brought up Hilton, I thought of, you remember that interview? I think it was Scott Wapner and Bill Ackman in March, when he was talking about, he was crying about COVID or whatever. Anyways, Hilton was one of the stocks he owned.
I do remember Bill Ackman crying, but that wouldn't be the first time I saw Bill Ackman crying on TV.
Whatever, he's
Crocodile
a gajillionaire.
tears, yeah.
We can make fun of him. Anyways, when you look at, it's pretty. I mean, this is pretty. The reason Matt brought it up is we love clean breakouts. We love clean patterns, and it's obvious. Like it just grabs your eyeballs and says, "Hey, pay attention." Anytime things are a little bit messy on the daily, you can always zoom out to the weekly. But look, this is the pre-COVID high at that 115 level, and you've hit it multiple times, 5-6 times over the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the assumption is, when you think about supply and demand, if there's a finite amount of sellers up here and you keep gobbling through that supply, eventually you absorb all the selling, demand stays constant, and prices have to go higher to find more sellers. So the more times you test a level, the more significant it becomes, but also the weaker it becomes, because you're chewing through supply that's coming into the marketplace. Thus, I'm a buyer if it finally chews through the supply. So, on a breakout, you wait for the trigger, which signals that, yeah, we're done. We ate all the sellers, and now let's go higher. So I like it. It's a clean pattern, and I'd probably ignore the wick on this. So remember, the November deal, this goes back to the COVID vaccination when that was reported. I mean, that was nuts. And so to me, I don't care about the wick. I care more about these last two highs, which means, Matt, your breakout, your trigger is pretty imminent. I mean, essentially today's high is your trigger.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I also discount that wick as well, Tyler. There's context to that wick, and the real wick is the double top that you identified at that slightly north of 115 level. I think you can be patient here too, though, right? I don't think you have to be aggressive. It's number one, it's Hilton. Right, we're not talking an aggressive tech play that can drive 8% on the breakout. Hilton just doesn't move like that on breakouts a lot. So breakout, consolidate, gives you plenty of time. It's a company you can write covered calls on as well, right? It stopped its dividend during the pandemic for obvious reasons, but we're also talking about a breakout of an all-time high here on Hilton. And so reclaiming that territory lost due to the pandemic, I think this is one that is going to be technically driven, and anything above that north of trigger 115, that could work out here.